Let me tell you a little history about myself. I was born and raised in New York, African background, and I've been in hip hop from the second stage. So my introduction to hip hop came in the late 70s and early 80s. So I started out as a DJ buying break beats, and I started out as a break dancer later. Then I became a quite famous graffiti writer in New York City. And then with the DJing, when the advent of MIDI and sampling came into being in the mid 80s, I got into music production and stuff. And growing up in New York City, I saw all the things happening from Russell Simmons to Chuck D coming out of Long Island, and later throughout the rap and the Run DMCs, and then the labels coming through and all that stuff. And later on, I went back to Ghana and started doing my work there. So in the mid 90s, I connected with a guy named Reggie Rockstone, and we pretty much started something called Hip Life. But the thing is, we wasn't calling it Hip Life at the time. We were calling it hip hop, because that's what we did. It's just as much as a jazz musician going to Japan and living there for 5 years. He didn't call it anything else. The jazz musicians just thought they were doing jazz. So I'd like to introduce my panelists. Unfortunately, LD did not make his connecting flight. Although he's on his way here now, he's going to miss this panel. So we will keep it moving. So to my right, I have DJ Black, and DJ Black is a very famous DJ in Ghana. I met DJ Black in the mid-90s, and he claims that he was influenced by me, but I can't take all that credit. He was influenced by many things, so I'm just a small factor in his influence. But DJ Black is quite popular now because he actually broke out of Ghana, and he does a lot of stuff with the various video outlets in Africa, such as Channel O, MTV Base, and BET International. So they're always constantly calling on him for his DJ events hosting and DJ skills for major events, and such as MTV Video Awards.
Yeah, Channel O
Awards and stuff like that. So he's a very well-known DJ. But more importantly, for about 10 years now, he's been doing something with on Joy FM 99.7 FM in Ghana, and he pretty much is known for his signature midnight, not midnight, like late night master mix called Open House Party. And because of internet and every streaming, so he keeps fans happy from basically all continents. And on my left, I have Jesse Weaver Shipley, and Jesse Weaver Shipley, he's an associate professor, and he's worked at many universities and everything, but he's always been doing research in Ghana, and he's done films before, but the last film he's done now is called Living the Hip Life, and he's also come out with a book, a companion book called Living the Hip Life, the celebrity and entrepreneurship in Ghanaian popular music. And he can expound on many things also, because he knows some of the hip life artists personally and stuff. And although we have talking about Ghana, there's other things going on, so I can fill in the blanks. What's going on in Nigeria, what's going on in East Africa, in Nairobi, in urban centers such as Johannesburg, and even in the early 90s when I used to hang out in Dakar, Senegal, things was going on there. So let's get it started, and here we go. So one of the first topics that I have to speak about would be, well, Jesse, just quick round about what we're about to get into.
Yeah, thanks, Rab. First thing I wanted to just start out thinking about is the history of music in Africa and a couple of relationships around it. The first one being, in some ways, the center of this conversation, which has to do with media, digital media, and its relationship to what's happening now, and globalization. This is a kind of crucial moment in thinking about African music, even thinking about the concept of something called African music. Can we talk about something as African music, Ghanaian music, Nigerian music, or how do we think about something as a music which reaches audiences globally? There's shifts in technology, which we all know right now are really changing the music industry. There's a lot of anxiety, but also a lot of opportunity. Even last night, we were at a club, and we were talking, DJ Black and I were talking to a couple people, and they said, "Where are you from?" Black said, "Oh, I'm from Ghana." They said, "They have DJs, they have hip hop in Ghana? What's going on?" So the kind of the level of what people know and what people listen to is very kind of incommensurate. It's very strange. But there's also a lot of opportunity. You see artists coming out of Nigeria and South Africa and Ghana to some extent, crossing over in European markets, to some lesser extent, some American markets. but there's this kind of possibility, this potential. So one of the things that I think we can think about is both the history of that over the last 10, 15, 20 years, as well as the possibilities for the future. So the two words that I want kind of fresh in our mind are technology and globalization as we think about what's going on in Africa. The other part about that is, where is Africa? If you have an African artist who is based in London, who moves back and forth between Nigeria and London and New York, is that an African artist? Is that a global artist? Is that an underground artist? How do we rethink geography based on these kind of older ideas of place? And that's something that a lot of these guys, young musicians in their 20s and 30s, are really starting to force people to do. Final sentence before we can move forward. African musicians are at the forefront of technology use. You hear this over and over again when you're in the studio, when you're shooting videos, these kind of things. Artists who don't have maybe as many resources, they don't have access to what's going on at Universal, where Rab currently works in New York. They don't have the same kind of studios. More and more there are those kind of facilities on the African continent. But artists are doing more with less. And there's a lot of creativity going on with the way that people use everything from Twitter feeds to digital file circulations and downloads to cameras, all these kind of things. And African artists are at the forefront of the use of digital technologies.
Mobile technology.
Yeah. Mobile technologies. So that's what I'd like to say as an opening thing.
Okay, so I'm going to pose some questions to my panelists here. DJ Black, Jesse Shipley.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Rab asked me this. So how has digital technology reshaped music on the African continent? So we're talking about tech in this sense. Specifically in like Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, Senegal, and Nigeria. Yeah. And what are the unique ways that digital technologies and recording and editing are used in Africa? So speaking of tech, you do a radio show, you use the latest DJ equipment, Serato and everything. Just explain like the tech part of it.
Well, how has it helped shape African music? I think I'll start with a story. In the mid-90s, when hip life had started in Ghana, the only way the musicians and DJs could promote the music was to, as we all know, record your song on a CD, walk directly to the radio station, and then, give it to the DJ. But in 95, 96, I met Rab at the University of Ghana, and he was promoting Reggie Rockstone. So he came up to me with CDs, and I asked Rab, where is your car? He looked at his feet and said, this is my car. And I learned a big lesson. Okay, so how do we get our music, how do we promote our music quickly without having to pick up a car and go here and then. Then, with the introduction of technology, today you have artists in Ghana who will immediately, get to the studio, record a track, and within 5 minutes, you find it on your BB. Within 10 minutes, it's on YouTube. I will give an example of D Black, who hails from Ghana. He's a young artist who, with the help of technology, has been able to cross over from Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa, is winning awards. So technology, and also for me as a DJ, podcasting has really helped me tremendously because, what would I do? Record a mix, try to promote music from Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, Liberia, and put it on. But now today, you have people from Madagascar, places I've never been before, downloading your podcast and asking questions. Who is this? How can I work with this? And of course, with the help of technology, I've been able to bridge, help artists such as Asim from Ghana, and been able to connect in with somebody like JR from South Africa, and they've been able to record a track, which I found playing in Emirates when I was coming. And, so technology has really helped promote African music.
Jesse, can you speak over technology from like the filming perspective and what you saw in the recording studios? Because I was a major producer in New York, and my background is I lived in recording studios. I pretty much created the soundtrack in Ghana. A lot of people don't know that. So I can speak about that whole technology, like going in Ghana in the 90s and actually seeing full-blown studios there and feeling at home when I was working here in Midtown Manhattan, working with Mary J. Blige and all those different people. But can you speak about the technology and the tech right now?
Yeah, one of the things that has, I think, taken African contemporary pop music to the next level has to do with music videos and the way in which artists have taken digital cameras, VHS tapes a few years ago, going back, how they turn those into something that becomes mobile and spreads the word to new audiences and allows one person with a camera and a bad microphone to shoot something really cool and interesting and have somebody who might be 17-year-old edit it and put it up and get 1 million hits. It's really quite amazing when you think about how people shot music videos not that long ago with $200,000 budgets, and if you couldn't do that, you were in trouble. So that taking up a kind of underground sensibility, but then turn it into something that's mainstream, turning it into something that has the potential to reach new kinds of audiences. And just to take it back historically a little bit, I met Rab and Reggie Rockstone in 1997 when I first was doing research in Ghana for this book which came out this year, Living the Hip Life. And they were just coming up with this sound, as Rab said. And one of the reasons that it became big, and one of the reasons I started to study it was actually, that's a picture of the National Theatre of Ghana right there. I was working at the National Theatre of Ghana with the National Theatre Company, writing a book on theater, the history of modern drama in Ghana and West Africa. There'd be a small audience at the 1,500-seat theater in the National Theatre. You go out back, and there'd be 300 kids, this is 1997, who were trying to rap, who wanted to be rap artists. And they were performing and rehearsing for a rap competition, which the theater was holding. What was interesting to me was how 95, 96, hip-hop was something that there was an underground movement in various places. Some kids were doing it. But by 97, 98, it suddenly became this national thing. And the kind of conversations about what hip-hop was and what it could be revolved around a moment of changing technologies in the early to mid-90s, which had to do with, and DJ Black was instrumental in this, the rise of private radio stations. When Ghana had a new constitution, the Fourth Republic of Ghana in 1992, the constitution mandated the privatization of media. And in some ways that, 2, 3, 4 years later, opened up new radio stations, which then were looking for content. Reggie Rockstone and Rab were really producing the first kind of Ghanaian hip-hop music. And these new radio stations, particularly Joy FM, where Black has been for a long time, Radio Universe, where you were before, were looking for local content that was going to appeal to youth movement. So that moment in the mid-90s was about a change in technology, which opened up this youth movement. 5, 10 years later, changing technology again allows young artists to then come in new kinds of ways. And as we see now, we're all tweeting, we're all doing these kind of things. And, you make a track, you release it. Sometimes kids are making tracks, they're not even in the same continent with people they're producing with. I just was talking to an artist, Sam Tushai in the Bronx, Ghanaian guy. He's doing beats, meets some guy on MySpace, old MySpace, produces it with somebody in London, gets Skype vocals from someone in Toronto, mixes it, and then sends it to a DJ in Ghana. Right. They never even met any of these people. And they're producing something which then has an interesting following, a couple 100,000 hits. It's really amazing. So it's changing so quickly. The other interesting thing about writing a book to try and capture some of this is the speed of this stuff, the publishing industry. So I started researching this book 15 years ago. It's meant to kind of capture the moment between 95 and 2010. But even in the year that the book takes to come out, everything changes, right? So it's not an up-to-date account. If you want an up-to-date account, you better be on the Twitter feed because it's going to change minute to minute. Right. So, in the introduction of the book, I try and say, look, this is capturing something about the way that technology changes, not the specifics, because it's going to change again even before you finish reading this paragraph, right? So it's really interesting to try and see the structures that allow technological change and then try and anticipate what the next step is going to be.
Yeah, I just want to make one more comment on the tech. I will take one question about this tech subject in about 1 minute. And then we'll move on to the next aspect of the panel. When I used to go back and forth from New York to Accra, and what we used to call it a tri-continental cipher. We do London, New York, Accra, and then my Niger people probably do the same thing: Lagos, New York, or Lagos, Houston, and then back to one of the U.S. cities and stuff. So we go North America, Europe, Africa. A lot of us roll like that. And so it was no big thing for us to, you hear Notorious B.I.G. or one of our favorite R&B artists, or even go back to our, what our parents listened to, the high life artists and stuff. It was like no big thing and stuff at all. And when I used to come to Accra, I didn't really have to bring any equipment because my samplers, the Akai MPCs, the Akai 950s, the ASR 10s, the MIDI equipment, everything was there. I literally just had back then we used to use floppy disks and load up the samples and stuff. And that's all I had to do because I was going to college in New York. So on my spring break, I just bring my disc and fire up the sounds and stuff. So this whole misconception that Africa's just got goat skin drums and hollowed out things is not true. And, my people from various parts of Africa, and they can speak about that, and I used to hang out with the guys from Dakar, Senegal. They was doing the same tri-continental thing. PBS and P-Fry and all these guys, they go Dakar, Paris, New York, same thing. We all was networking. So actually, Reggie Rockstone and I, we were the first to like throw up a website like '97 from Accra, Ghana, because the guy who created the domain, the .com.gh, he let us keep a server in his room. So we started like a website, Webstar internet company, and at the same time I threw up a Reggie Rockstone site in '97. Once I did that, that allowed me to communicate with the rappers in Tanzania, in Kenya, and South Africa. Prophets of the City, I didn't even know those guys, but because we was on the internet in '97, it allowed us to branch on. So can I take one question about tech, please?
Yeah.
Can you step up to the mic, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
Sorry. Okay.
And just share your name with us, please. And where you're from.
Hi there, my name's Andrew Missing and I'm from London, England. I wanted to ask a question. I totally hear exactly what you're saying. One of the things I just wanted to put in, this idea that people have been using tech in Africa in a lot of different ways. I remember the first time I ever saw an MP3 only nightclub in the world was in Kampala, Uganda. Robert Saramaga's the National Theatre there. So I think that is true about people who have their own ways of creating music in Africa and their kind of axial writing between triangles and stuff around the world. But what I'm interested in is actually how people are consuming, using tech to consume. Because, I've worked a lot across Africa and, mobile has a lot more penetration and a lot more use in there. It's way ahead of the way, for example, with M-Pesa in the way that mobile money has grown in Africa and that sort of stuff has happened. It's a very different kind of consumption model, and I'm interested in the mix of media where how people both consume and how people who market music distribute music via the various digital and technological channels.
Yes, I have a section
interested in those differences. Yeah,
I have a section in this panel called business. We're going to touch into that and elaborate more about that. But I do understand what you're talking about using the tech. And we have like somebody from iRockin.com, the digital download service that started in Nigeria and is branching out to other continents and other African countries. So we'll talk about that also in the business section. So the next thing I want to talk about. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, just to bridge the gap for that, just real quick, is something interesting, and I'd actually be interested to hear other people's take on this in different parts of the world, which has to do with the relationship between corporate sponsorship, sales, and things like that. Because one thing I think is definitely happening across the African continent is artists brand themselves and explicitly use the language of business and branding to get their name out there to gain corporate sponsorship, because money is often made through gaining a corporate sponsor, through finding broader audiences. And in order to do that, you have to get your music out there for free to new audiences, and you have to invest. And people who are then, business entrepreneurs are then trying to invest in those artists with a longer term goal. We were just talking about this the other night in terms of some complicated connections globally. But it's really fascinating. And so to me, that raises a couple questions, maybe slightly more, dare I say, like sort of spiritual and musical, aesthetic. What is music for? How are people using it? How do people then get caught up in branding? What are the commercialization aspects of it? And just specifically then in terms of music movement, as you said, like I'm amazed at kids who really don't have any money. They have these great phones and they're Bluetoothing songs to each other and consuming songs in these really complicated, interesting ways that like circumvents all these formal networks. And this makes everyone knows the record industries are continually anxious and imploding and exploding and downsizing and upsizing and resizing, whatever they're doing to try and match these kind of complicated ways that people are consuming. How are people going to capitalize on this? And I think we'll get into that more later.
Okay, the next topic of this digital media and music in Africa, how important are music videos? The music and what kinds of stories do they tell? DJ Black, music videos. Because you actually use Serato to DJ music now. You're not just an audio DJ. You must, at some point, you must have understood, like, okay, these music videos, I need to start mixing these music videos and project them on a big screen or something.
I mean, as a DJ, playing audio, and of course with new DJs coming onto the scene, everybody, cutting up, and that, I thought it way back in the 2007 and 8, how am I going to be able to bring this, in a visual way? How can I host a concert or promote African music through, bringing it visually?
But can you take it back though? Because apparently you must have been influenced by music videos, just the ones coming from UK and North America. You're like, okay, that's a Nas video and stuff, and then you see like, okay, that's how they dress in New York and stuff. So the importance of music is like, when can we tell our own story? Can you take it back to that? Then
I mean, okay, yeah, seeing videos from America, George B.I.G., Tupac, and Mobb Deep, etc., it all look good, but sometimes, you fail to connect with it because, the lifestyle is different from that in Africa, but somehow you're able to understand what they are talking about because you can relate to it. I want to do this. It's difficult where I am, and in Africa, a lot of young kids could understand that. And let me say, in the mid-90s, when in Ghana music videos started coming from hip life, most of them were really funny to look at because, the cameras that were used and the kind of clothes they wore, trying to sometimes emulate what they saw coming from America and in the UK. And fast forward, and I met DJ Kofi in '96 when DJ Kofi and Rab battled in Accra. You remember that day? Yes. So and I've been talking to him ever since. And he's an international DJ who DJs across the world. And I spoke to him and said, hey, I'm really interested in music video DJ because I've seen something that somebody had done, and I was wondering how he did that because I'd never seen something like that. And he said, okay, wait a bit, Serato is about to introduce the video SL, because then I was experimenting with virtual DJ and time coding to say how time code could actually control something on a computer. And he says, wait a minute, don't waste money trying to get a DVD DJ player. Then Serato came out with Video SL, and then I had to buy it and then experiment with it. And today Channel O, which is quite a force in promoting African music on the continent. Today you have Channel O Music Video Awards.
What year did Channel O realize that they see a lot of videos coming in, but they realized there was an opportunity to show music from 54 African countries? 98, 1999, remember?
Yeah,
they were late in the game for us who lived in North America or Europe and stuff, but to understand that there was videos coming from Africa, but they needed an outlet just as much as our mobile digital platform of today, like the iRockers, they realized there needs to be some platform because there's so much content out there.
Exactly.
99, right?
99. They wanted to concentrate on just music videos from Africa because, yes, when they started, they would show music videos from every part of the world, but a limited part from Africa. And then, those from Nigeria and Liberia and Kenya would complain, oh, you're always showing videos from Nigeria and South Africa. You don't want to show videos from Ghana. And they will come and explain that you need to step up with the quality because we're showing to a global audience and to the continent. So today, it's amazing to watch a video recorded, music video recorded and shot in Ghana, and you can compare that to anywhere in the world.
Yeah, like when I saw like Ice Prince Zamani or Banky W's video coming out of Nigeria, I was like, okay. We was using like Arri Flex cameras and stuff to film this stuff like in the late 90s and early 2000s just to do, an R. Kelly video. But look at these videos here. They're using Canon 7Ds.
Yeah, 7Ds.
And then throw it in the Final Cut.
Exactly.
Just as good. I'll get to you in a minute, Jesse, because I know you can speak about videos. Just wrap up so we can get our partner.
I was just going to give an example with D Black again, who I see as a forceful artist. This guy from Ghana has been able to use his music videos to actually promote himself and become a brand in Africa. Recently he won a Channel O Music Video Award working with an artist from Nigeria, and I've seen him come up and I said, wow, so you've been able to not just your music but just your music videos, and now you're a brand in Africa. So yeah, Jesse.
Yeah, two things. One is the history of sort of rise of video film industry. We probably all know about sort of what we're calling Nollywood now. In the late 80s, Ghanaian film producers started to turn to video more, and that had to do with the rise of video technologies that allowed them to shoot local videos, and consumers and audiences and actors and things explicitly were saying things like, we want to see our own stories on television. We're tired of watching The Young and the Restless. We're tired of Ghana television playing these third-rate American shows, blah blah blah. We want to produce stories that are relevant to local situations, and new technologies allowed that. Video producers at first they didn't know what they were doing because they were using new technology. The quality was low, particularly sound took a long time to get better quality, but people loved the stories. So the rise of kind of video film then led to the possibility for music videos. And music videos are incredibly creative potential because it's basically like an encapsulated film. You can watch it anywhere. You can watch it on your phone, and it carries a story with you. So if you're right, so you can watch it in the Bronx. If you can watch it in London, wherever it is. You don't need that long to watch it. The stories that people are telling are what people often say is relevant to local conditions. They have to do with aspiration, with hope, with possibility, with swagger, with humor, but ones that speak to local sensibilities, local dance moves, local styles, things like that. So it's kind of a way of creating not just a kind of, artist profile and brand, but also a kind of sensibility. So you see Nigerian artists really spreading these really complicated aesthetic images that tie into American ideas of hip-hop, London issues and things like that, but also speak to something very Nigerian. And then Ghanaians are like, oh, look what Nigerians are doing now. They're doing it really big now. We better catch up. There's this kind of interesting way that people that are circulating these things everywhere, creating a kind of global sensibility, but trying to maintain local sense. What does it mean to be a Ghanaian artist versus a Nigerian artist? And how do those things, in particular, I think to our interests? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, there was just a couple images up here circulating. So this is Jibril, the African who's a Sierra Leonean and Ghanaian artist who grew up in Lagos. He's an interesting artist. He's based in New Jersey now. But there's some shots here from a music video that I did with him, his song called The Streets of Africa, quote unquote, which we shot it with M1 of Dead Prez. So we shot it in New Jersey and in Accra. And it was a really interesting shoot because the whole concept of the video was, what's the dialogue between Africa and African diaspora? So the two rappers are kind of talking back and forth. Jibril's saying, this is what it's like in Africa, and one is saying, this is what it's like in the kind of diaspora. What are the politics of these things? How does racism kind of get articulated in different ways in different places? Most of the shoot took place in this really interesting butcher shop / video sales shop / car chop shop in New Jersey. So we had this very interesting kind of sense, exactly what Rab's talking about, the visualization of tricontinental status. And it was a really nice video. And here's an artist who's unknown, outside of circles, Jibril, trying to draw on M1 of Dead Prez, a well-known American artist who's really interested in reaching out to African artists and trying to create a connection around that. So that was a fun video shoot for me to see how that worked and everything. So there's different stuff coming up with videos.
Yes, can I take a question about anything related to video and how important you think music videos are in Africa? And what kind of stories did they tell? Anyone want to step up to the mic and just present something to us? Yeah, how important are music videos and what kind of stories do they tell? Like just expound on what we're talking about and just give us a direct question. Yeah.
All right, so I have a direct question just to get your thoughts on something. Now, something that I've seen, obviously, like we've said, there's been a massive increase in the quality of videos coming from the continent. That also means there's been a massive increase in budgets spent on these videos. But in the same vein, there hasn't been a massive increase in the amount of revenue that's being generated on the continent. So what are your guys' thoughts around artists now feeling under pressure to spend huge budgets on videos? I mean, every day I get artists coming and saying, like, look, I want to shoot my latest video on a red, right? And it's very expensive to rent a red camera.
Yeah, they're using red cameras.
A lot of people are using red cameras.
Somebody's using one now.
Last year, we wanted to invest in actually supporting artists shooting music videos, or the year before, bought a couple of cameras, some equipment, 7Ds, 5Ds, and a lot of artists were like, sorry, this is old. We want to use red cameras. So 4K. There's a level of I want to get you guys' thoughts in terms of how can artists be realistic around the budgets they spend on these videos? Because quality is very, very, very important, but so is obviously maintaining a budget for other things such as marketing and other aspects of their career as well.
I just want to say the technology now has been so, not dumbed down, but put in people's hands that you really don't need red camera, because right now most people can't even play 4K or 5K. I mean, you still can tell your story. You should concentrate more on the settings and the actors and actresses inside the video. Use that money to pay them to elaborate your story more instead of standing in the club and waving champagne bottles and stuff. You can use that budget more to do that. It's really, the technology has really been put in our hands. I mean, I learned, I'm walking around with an iPhone 5 and stuff. It's I got a mini computer in my hand. Not saying that I need to film a music video with that. But I'm saying a lot of these artists, that's old 7D. 7D is perfect, man. You see the image there. It's perfect for video.
Yeah, that's a great question, partly because it shows the way in which different people in the music industry, artists, different people have a take on what's going on. One thing I think, that, as the sort of story of the 80s or early 90s comes, where people were shooting video films, quality was terrible, but people loved them, is at the end of the day, if something has a decent story and a decent kind of sensibility, it's likely to reach an audience. And you still see that because if you think about something that's happened a lot is to get specific, Fuse, ODG, who's a London-based Ghanaian artist who has had 2 hits recently, very cool songs. But the kind of informal music videos that he shot and that he then enlisted people to shoot sort of on subways and in the streets of London got millions and millions of hits. They were shot just informally, and they were beautiful. People loved them. You know, the camera's jittering. People are walking in front of them. Some of the artists are dancing in a McDonald's, and you see people randomly walking on the subway. They're brilliant. But the technology's, it's adequate. But when they shot the official music videos, they're beautiful. They're shot higher tech. They're less relevant, and the song has already become popular because of the earlier videos. There's something interesting, and I think one of the things you're pointing to has to do with the idea of prestige. Artists really want to feel prestigious. They want to feel respected in certain kinds of ways. And the Red camera is seen as prestigious now. They're not going to see the difference, really. The shoot itself becomes a moment, I think, to feel respected by the industry, and a kind of moment of anxiety, I think. But it's hard because you're negotiating artists. You want them to feel comfortable and feel like they can be creative, but you don't want them to just fetishize the thing in itself. It's got to go somewhere. And then as someone managing or producing it, this is an investment, because how are you going to capitalize the actual music video? That, again, becomes a calling card for other kinds of circulations. In and of itself, it's not necessarily making the money. So that's why you see, you see Sprint, not Sprint, what's it called? Sprite, which is like Sprint, but with an N instead of E. Mountain Dew, they've, in the last few years, as you all know, have gotten into sponsoring big-time artists, but doing it in this way that looks more informal. And they're trying to kind of go the other way, which I think is quite interesting.
But if you're an African artist who's in Ghana coming up, what are you going to do? I mean, just sit and relax and say, okay, maybe my budget is too small. You have to, face the competition, and maybe initially the money you put in trying to shoot a good quality video to compete against others will be immense and quite bearing on you. But in the end, if it's good and your music is good and you do it consistently, it usually pays off.
Yeah. Can you save the question for the Q&A? I'm just taking one question per section. My next thing, and DJ Black is going to love this, and I'm going to love this too. What have been the popular styles of music coming out of African countries in the past 10 years? A lot of people, we have somebody from KAZI, remember what we call the world music culture of the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Like the past 10 years, there's a whole new style coming out of Africa. It's not considered world music. DJ Black, you can speak about different countries also.
Let me see.
Kwaito in South Africa, everything.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff coming out.
South Africa, Kwaito, which is a distinct sound, and nobody has been able to emulate it on the African continent. South Africa is also big with house music. Of course, Nigeria, high life, juju music. And in Ghana,
for the past 10 years.
For the past 10 years,
yes.
In Ghana, hip life, high life, and of course, francophone, Afrobeats, zouk music is really, really big in Ghana. As a DJ, playing in a party today, you would have to start with African music, high life, hip life, and that's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear music from the Western world. They want to hear their own music. Start with some hip life, high life, throw in some francophone, and if the crowd is really high, then you can get creative, bring in some benga from Kenya or some fella here.
So you're saying that hip hop and ragga that we knew like more than 10 years ago, it's not that popular now? There's actually 90% room of these local styles coming from these different countries and stuff?
I'm not saying it's not popular. It is because
people still doing hip hop in Senegal.
Exactly.
People still doing ragga in Nigeria. Yeah. But there's something else going on.
There's something else. People, let me say, in Ghana, they are really proud to say, okay, we want to hear our own music. We want to dance to it. Because now the popular dance now is Azonto, which goes with a kind of music. So in Ghana, yes, 90% of African music before hip-hop, dancehall, or whatever comes in. Meanwhile, in the 90s, it wasn't like that. If you walk into a party, they want to hear hip-hop, R&B, dancehall, reggae, then you could throw in hip life, high life, or francophone. But today, it's the opposite way.
It's quite amazing with some of the styles of music that's coming out from the 54 countries. I mean, I didn't even touch into like what's going on in North Africa. I mean, yeah, traditionally they have ride music from the Berber people and everything, but they got their own style going on right now. Jesse, can you elaborate on this thing? Like, what's been the popular styles of music coming out for the past 10 years and stuff? And like, how did they come about?
Yeah, one thing. I think that there's a lot of excitement and creativity around genre itself. Like, how do you put something out there that's going to appeal to different audiences? A lot of times you have artists thinking about an international audience. Other times you have artists thinking about a national audience. I think one thing that's really dominant now is the Nigerian sound, and this is really in the last 5 years, 6 years maybe. And I think what a lot of the Nigerian artists have done is create a very unique genre, using pidgin hooks, pidgin lyrics for the most part.
Yeah, Yoruba slang, right? Lasgidi slang.
But the key is that the hook is going to appeal, like, people are going to understand it if they're not Yoruba. But it still has a very Nigerian sound. You're going to be able to say, this is Nigerian for the most part. They're doing something, the beats have also something which has a Nigerian tradition to it for the most part. West African beat sounds. But it's going to appeal to a broader audience. I think different artists have tried to do that. South African artists, I think, have actually struggled more to do that. Kwaito crosses over on the African continent, but it has a particular sound. And it's actually, it's kind of outdated now. Hip-hop artists in South Africa, English language hip-hop artists are more niche, I think. They're not as, they don't appeal as much, even though they're really brilliant. Like, they sound great. And there's always this struggle between what does it mean to sound American, what does it mean to sound African, things like that. So African artists, I think, dare I say, like, since we've been talking about D Black sound for the most part is quite American until recently. But he can't really play in New York. He can't come and say, I'm a Ghanaian artist. This is how I sound. This is my hip-hop sound, which is influenced more by Brooklyn than by what's going on in other places, because there's a kind of disjunction.
But Jesse, hasn't like the small island of Jamaica laid the blueprint with the ragga dancehall? Yeah. They defined themselves with their music and said, okay, now I have people in Toronto, New York, London, Lagos, Accra, Johannesburg, Nairobi dancing to my music. Yeah. So they kind of laid the blueprint for the African countries and stuff. The same thing with the Latinos, with the reggaeton coming out of the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, and then the different sounds coming out of Colombia, Panama and stuff. So what you're saying, I'm just affirming what you're saying, like these various African genres of music laying blueprints and claiming their own.
Yeah. Yes. One thing that's interesting, though, is that there hasn't been a model of African music that's crossed over in the same way that Bob Marley was able to, that the Jamaican moment was able to do. And maybe it'll happen in the next 6 months or next year or 18 months. Maybe if we meet here next year, we'll have a very different picture of what African pop music, African hip-hop, African sounds are going to be like. Because now they get appropriated. And this is just, to me, speaks to particularly sort of stereotypes about representation of Africa.
But the past 10 years, though, it's a real fusion. Like that's the proper word to use. Yeah.
But the thing, but foreign audiences have so much trouble hearing that. Which is there's this kind of disjunction between all this amazing music and these kind of different styles, and then you try and export it, and people are like, "Oh, that's from Africa. Okay, what is that? How does that sound?" So there's something interesting going on there. It's a moment of opportunity, I think.
Any questions or statements in the audience about audio and the sound of this music coming out of the African continent? Just please step up to the mic. Yeah.
Hey, my name is Regan Carver. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I definitely appreciate this forum. I was wondering, what do you think about in South Africa? There's artists like Hip Hop Pensula, kind of the fusions that he's doing. I don't know how aware you are of it.
Well, we're very aware of him. Yeah, very aware. We all
Double HP.
Yeah, that's Double HP. That's what we call it.
Because the interesting thing that he's been doing is, for example, coming to DC and bringing American artists back to the continent. And then, for example, there was a show, Gabe Asheru Ben and HHP opened up for Kanye West, I think. So that would kind of.
I'll speak on that real quick, Black, and probably ride on it. I mean, what you just said, what do you think he's doing? People in Nigeria are doing it. We call those collaborations. They did it, done it. People in Senegal did it, done it. People in Ghana, Reggie Rockstone, Wyclef, Beanie Man from Jamaica, did it, done it and stuff. So they're doing the same thing. Bringing artists like, hey, we're doing this thing in our particular African country. And then, I'm going to come to Washington, D.C., I'm going to do something with you, or I'm going to go in the studio. It's happening everywhere simultaneously right now. And because HAP speaks in KwaZulu and he has his own language, it doesn't even matter and stuff. So, Black, please. Yeah.
Double HP has really worked hard. And when I met him 2 years ago, and to think that, he was being really popular in South Africa, and of course using technology, he's been able to cross over to Ghana and to come and perform at the Ghana Music Awards was a big thing. And just like Rab is saying, in Ghana, even as much as African music is really the thing now, they still want to hear some hip hop and hear. And just last week we had Chris Brown perform it, and I wouldn't be surprised that maybe next month or so he could be working with any Ghanaian artist.
Well, he likes Wizkid.
He's already working with Nigerian artists.
Jesse, comment just to write on.
Yeah, I mean, I think these things are interesting. These kind of the way that people cross over, the way that people make connections. It was Snoop Dogg did that video with what's his name? If you these kind of crossovers are really interesting. Akon, his connections and things, and I guess I think about those things as an entrepreneur, as a from the business perspective.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
What are those things?
I mean, maybe it's a of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, what do those things represent? Business-wise as well as musically, how are those collaborations? And I think M1 has done a lot of collaborations across the continent. Not quite as big a profile as some other people, but he's done a lot to try and make those connections. Wyclef has done a bunch of things as well.
And I also can talk about Coptic, who was a Ghanaian producer based in the USA. He came out with a project last year, the Black Star Line, and his idea was to be able to use African artists or work with African artists and to try to let them collaborate with American. And I'm proud to have hosted that with Lee Kasumba from South Africa, and it became quite successful in Ghana because they were interested. Wow! So our artists can now, work with any artist that easily through the magic of a producer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, the next thing I want to talk about, we've talked about, just to recap that, we talked about the tech, what's going on with digital media and music in Africa. We talked about the video with digital media and music in Africa, and we talked about the audio aspect. The next part is, and this is the part Black and I love, and Jesse not so much, but social networking. How is social networking and the use of internet technology, DJ Black, playing a role in reaching the masses and of a continent containing 54 countries and hundreds of languages, and how can these styles of music and video be linked to North American audiences? Social media.
Social media, really powerful.
Podcasts, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everything.
In 2006, when I finished school,
website.
I sitting in an office. I was just thinking, wow, I can walk up to a TV station and say, okay, this is what I'm doing. Can you show it for me? Because they'll charge me lots of money. I can't do that. And I said, okay, let me just jump on. Then it was High Five, and you go to MySpace and the YouTube and all that. And it has really been influential. Today, when an artist releases a song, within, like I said, 5 minutes, it's on your phone. And I can say there's a popular Ghanaian track which became really, really famous just through mobile phones. He hadn't even crossed over to the radio station or to TV yet. And now you have the radio stations and TV chasing the artist. Hey, your song is everywhere. Can we have it? We want to play it. And also, Blackberries in Ghana has been really, really, really influential. I mean, yes.
Other countries too, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Let me stick to my Ghana.
Yes.
I mean, it's really, really been influential. So, yes, it has played a major role in reaching the masses.
Jesse, social media and the use of internet technology playing a role in reaching the masses, and how it ties, would you use the word diaspora? In my case, I'm using North America. Yeah. Like somebody sitting in the Bronx or Toronto. It's like all of a sudden they know that something's going on in the mother country.
Yeah, I mean, the angle that I think is really interesting about that has to do with, again, the relationship between place and identity to some extent. So how does a first-generation Ghanaian artist or audience member, listener in the Bronx think about themselves as an audience member? How do white hipster listeners, how do African-American audiences think about the relationship to these things? Because you get Ghanaian and Nigerian artists in, again, we were talking about this last night, you get Ghanaian and Nigerian artists coming to New York and they're playing to 98% Ghanaian Nigerian crowds. They don't play as well to audience. They're not well known in these kind of circuits, and yet they can make a living and they can make some money by circulating among these. So there's something really interesting about new media. On the one hand, it makes these connections in new ways globally. You can send something out, as you're saying, and there's this way in which informal networks are then, like the TV stations are now seeking out these underground artists rather than artists begging to get their CD on. On the other hand, they create these kind of unexpected kind of new hierarchies where there might be this incredible circulation of Azonto, for example, which has a couple million hits, Nigerian hits which have even more, and yet most New Yorkers don't even know what's going on. Most Americans never heard of these artists. And it's really kind of interesting, and yet, you go to the Bronx and you can hear Azonto, you're driving in a taxi in, DC, you'll hear that song, but it goes unrecognized by, and then you'll have an Angolan hit that's kind of circulating and then it disappears. And one of the things that I think is maybe something I don't really want to talk about Gangnam Style, but why did Gangnam Style crossover become a particular kind of hit in this way versus why did something like Azonto not quite crossover, but still it's this really big hit, but it's still narrowly networked through West African sensibilities, crossing over in London a little bit to kind of fringe white hipster audiences, whatever, multicultural. But that's a really interesting thing that I think that people in music are really struggling with now. You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, Black, like, can you explain, like, just quickly how you use social media? And I'm using, like, there's the Facebook, there's the Twitter, there's email, there's a website, there's a blog, there's a podcast, there's a, Like, you probably be the perfect example when it's time.
I use it in various ways. If I have to do, video, if I have to promote music, the first thing I'll do is to first make sure that my music is uploaded either on SoundCloud or on my podcast, where I use Podomatic. And then immediately after that, as it's uploaded, I have to jump on it. Okay, it's not only on Podomatic or only on Twitter. There's Facebook, there is Tumblr. I have to make sure that they're all connected and that my various audiences in each of these platforms can access it.
So you're marketing.
Yeah, so I'll market.
You're branding yourself though.
And you have to do that consistently. Either every week, you don't want to drown them and say, oh, this guy's disturbing me every day, sending emails and that. But you have to do it, timely, every week. So I will do that every week and wait a bit. If I realize the numbers, I know what I'm expecting. Then
do you look at stats?
Yeah,
you look at stats.
Yeah, all
and
the
you can
time.
see where stuff.
You can see where your stuff is going.
And don't forget to download the DJ Black app. I mean, it's interesting. It's different than having a blog. You actually have an app, which then pushes things.
Do you have an iPhone app and an Android app?
iPhone, Android, and BlackBerry.
Can you just briefly tell me what your app does?
Well, what I decided to use my app to do was to be able to promote music, because I get music from everywhere, from America, Africa, Jamaica, wherever. And I said, okay, I can't just sit on the music myself, because I have only a 4-hour show on Saturday, another 4-hour show on Friday, and my podcast. But there's a lot of music, and some of these artists think that, okay, why don't we use your platform as a DJ to promote our music? So I was okay, let me come up with an app and work with somebody where I can actually, have it on people's phone and where to alert you, and you can have free access to free downloads. And that is what my app does: news, videos, free downloads. Yeah, basically that. So this kind of segues into my last segment of this panel: digital media and music in Africa. It's the business. Basically, how are these music and video productions monetized? You use a social networking to do it for a reason. So how are these video and music productions monetized? Can a person make a decent living off of electronic-based music? Because you realize we didn't really talk about live music. A lot of stuff is electronic-based. Go in the studio and jerk something out. How can it be monetized?
And there's something about Azonto that's very cool. It's not easy to do. For someone who's a non-initiate, right? Yeah. Gangnam Style there's something kitsch about it, right? It's something easy and pop and kind of cotton candy-ish. You can do it without. You can do it without feeling like a fool, because you're supposed to be a fool when you're doing it, right? So there's something interesting about that. But I think it's something we have to also think about in terms of media circulations, like how are the technological circuits set up, and who do they circulate to? Like I was saying. Who's going to access something from a Nigerian circulating network? How is that going to bleed into another network? K-pop is popular among a lot of youth in this kind of way, so this one kind of circulated in ways that maybe was unexpected, but had a kind of history. And I think that's something we can think more about. Rab, did you want to keep going on that, or do you want to ask?
No, I just want to take. I got like about 2 minutes left, so if you keep. Anybody got a brief question that we can just hit with a direct answer?
This lady had one earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, Paula. Paula, you got a question? Did you want to bring
it? Step up to the mic and we'll wrap it up with Paula's question.
Hey guys, Paula Rogo with Afropop Mag.
Hi Paula.
We were talking about music videos earlier, and I'm interested in how, because of money, the Pigeon, I guess it's the first Pigeon-only musical ever released. How does that fit into subject matter and of how music videos are put out?
What?
Because of money.
Good question.
You guys, their daily operation.
I think what it did was the first of its kind, because the only time and type we've seen is through maybe Bollywood, Indian, where they will sing and But with what?
Explain what that is. What the video talking about?
Oh, it's a video, a film, but it's just music, and whatever they do, they rap. you know. So there's nothing like a conversation. It's so a musical, you know, and it tells a story of how they survive in the ghetto and how, you know, they're able to make their money, beaten up, and what happens at the end. Yeah, in the idiom of language. So they use pidgin to do that music video.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really good example of something because it's, on the one hand, they're underground, so One Love and Mensa, they call themselves the FOKN boys. They're very irreverent. They do mostly pidgin stuff. They're London, you know, Europe, Ghana. They cross over. They're popular in Ghana, but they're not pop music in Ghana, right? So they're kind of underground. They're more intellectual, but they're also irreverent and funny. And the video is really beautifully done. It's something that we can really think about.
Because they're underground, I was able
There's
to
someone who's cutting your head off in the back. I don't know
Yeah,
what that
so
means.
we're about to wrap up this panel, but we have an associate, we have an actual book signing between the times. Right?
Yeah, so the Living the Hip Life, my book has been launched about 6 weeks ago, so I'm doing a book signing at 2:30 at the bookstore over there. There's also the
Flyers on the
film
chairs.
Living the Hip Life is also for sale over there. If you're interested, that's
And we have an associate audio track to this, a podcast telling the history of what happened in Ghana. We go with this. We thank everyone for coming. Enjoy the South by Southwest in Austin.
Wait, there's a panel at 5 o'clock if people want to continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
That everyone should come to as well.
Yeah, in the same room at 5 o'clock.
So we'll all be back here for that. So let's continue the conversation. Thanks, guys. We're around if you want to chat.